Obviously, we've got people spread out, some in Flagstaff and some at home online. But I'm glad you're here, and it's nice to see so many people. So typically I'll start the class with a warm-up with just 3 or 4 problems. They won't necessarily correlate to what we're working on, because I was getting a lot of feedback from students that we work so intensely on certain topics and then you kind of lose practice on some of the older topics. So I'm just picking kind of random sample GED type questions for us to take a look at the beginning to kind of keep some of those other topics fresh. So as we look at number 17, we actually did some of this on Tuesday. We started class on Tuesday, and I know there was a lot of confusion and chaos with all this in flag. And so we had a smaller group, but we'll kind of recap what we did. And one thing we did was we talked about ordering numbers from smallest to greatest or greatest to smallest. And I shared with the students that I went to a webinar with GED.com, and they talked about questions that students typically, they feel like they should do better and that they do more poorly. And they said actually ordering numbers from least to greatest or greatest to least is actually questions that students don't do as well as they expect them to do. Now, these are all positives, which most students do fine on, but we went over how to order when you have a mixture of positives and negatives or all negatives. So we'll take a look at that. But just kind of starting with the warming up our muscles, we're going to just look at all positives in this problem. So we have items weighing 51, 40, 48, and 44 to be stacked if you want them in order from heaviest to lightest. And one of the things we talked about Tuesday was to make sure that you are keying in on which direction they're going, smallest to largest or largest to smallest. And so since we're going heaviest to lightest, we should be getting the largest number down to the smallest number. Now, I would love for you guys to participate. You can turn on your mics and suggest an answer. You can type it in the chat. You should have either at the top or bottom of your screen. Mine's at the top, but I think yours might be at the bottom where you'll have a chat. You can open that and you can chat and put a chat in there for the whole class or just to me. But I see someone has suggested in the chat that the answer to 17 is C. And that pen isn't working. And as I look at 51, 48, 44, and 40, those are largest to smallest or heaviest to lightest. And so 17, the answer could be C. Again, we're going to go review again today when we have negative numbers, putting them in order, because that's typically where we see the most problems that students have. Which of the following correctly shows 2,354,769 rounded to the nearest 10,000? And so this is testing your knowledge of place value. And
I think it's B.
I think it's B. Okay. So when we look at place value, we've got, this is hundreds and tens and ones. And so then we have thousands. The 4 is in the thousands place. And so the 5 is in the 10,000s place. And when we round, we look at next door to the number at the right, and we see that it's a 4, which means we round down or we keep this 5. And so we would have 2,350,000. And so on B, the reason B wouldn't be right is that would be rounded to the nearest 1,000. And so you need to make sure you get that 10,000 in there. Okay. So B would be correctly rounded to the nearest 1,000 because they looked at the 4, look next door to the 7, and round the 7 to round the 4 to a 5. But to the 10,000s place would be C. Any questions? I would probably know your place values through a million. And so you have thousands, the 5 is 10,000s, the 3's 100,000s, and then the 2 is in the millions place. And let me know in the chat if it would be helpful for me to do like a sheet with the place values written out more neatly than just my little scratch here, and I could put something together for you. So if that's something that would be helpful, please write it in the chat that you'd like to have a paper with a review of place values.
You guys feeling about place value? You need to review them in more depth. Did you finish? I think so. Did you fill it all the way? Oh, no.
Okay, number 21. Maria spent 8 minutes installing a new shower head, 33 minutes rotting out a drain, and 18 minutes fixing a leaky faucet. Keyword, about how many minutes did it take her to complete all the tasks? Anytime you see about, that means you can estimate. You don't need an exact answer.
It's gonna be
So you can add the numbers as they are and then see which number it's closest to, or you can take an easier route. And that would be to just kind of round each of these numbers. For example, 8 is pretty close to 10. And 33 is pretty close to 30. And 18 is pretty close to 20. And so since all we want is an estimate, instead of adding these numbers, which are more challenging to add, you can kind of round them off and add those. 20 plus 30 is 50, and 50 plus 10 is 60. So 60 would be the closest estimate. But if you see the word about, that means you can estimate. And it's a good idea to do that because you'll get through the problem faster if you estimate and then if you estimate these and then add them versus adding them and then picking the right one. That makes sense? Okay. Number 22, Carla drove 248 miles in 4 hours. And so what was her average rate of speed in miles per hour? Anybody got an answer for that one?
62.
I didn't quite hear what you said.
62.
62, okay. Jot that down. How'd you get that answer? If you're willing to share.
I just divided the 4 by the 248.
248 divided by 4, and that is absolutely correct. Miles per hour means miles divided by hours. And so we have 248 miles in 4 hours. And so if you have the calculator on the test at this point, you can literally just plug in 248 divided by 4 hours, because basically we're going to want to break up those miles into 1 hour increments. And that gives you 62 over 1, which is really just 62 miles per hour. And so I would agree with your answer. Job. Any questions or concerns? Okay, so I want to take just a minute to take a look at what signing into Canvas looks like. Julie, can you guys see that on your screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go to coconino.edu, right up here in the upper right-hand side, it says My CCC. And so you click there. And at that point, it will ask you for your login credentials, which it logged me out already. So I would sign in. And once you get to this page here, what you're looking for is Canvas, which is in the upper left-hand corner. Click on Canvas.
Yeah, some of you guys, until you have your network ID and password set up, you're not gonna be able to log into the classroom or into the computers to actually see, but just try and follow Mary's instructions for now and just kind of take a look at it, and we'll definitely get you plugged in and see.
Okay, so you should see when you open Canvas, a student might look a little different, but you're going to want to choose Adult Ed, GED. And once you get here, all of the GED classes are all on this one page. And you can see underneath each shape, this is Monday, Wednesday, Language Arts morning. The triangle is Monday, Wednesday, Math afternoon, and so on. And so we are currently in the Tuesday, Thursday math in the morning. So you click on that. And this is the reason we'd really like to get people on Canvas if possible, because everything is congregated right here that you need. If you can get to this place, you simply click here to join the meeting via Zoom. Okay, so the Zoom link's right there for you. There's also a link to the sign-in sheet. And that's where you put your first and last name and the time that you came in. It'll always default to what time you open that sign-in sheet. But if you came in earlier, you can adjust it. And then, for example, this class ends at 12. And if you're planning to stay the whole class, you'd put in 12 and change it to PM, because noon is PM, not AM. And then you sign it with your mouse, and it doesn't matter if your signature looks really, really ugly. It's okay. And then you submit it. It will calculate your time, and that's how we keep attendance, so that we can track your attendance, so we know when we're at a point where we need to take a look at a progress test. So let me close that. I think Julie put the link to the sign-in sheet in the chat. So we'd like everybody to take the time to go ahead and sign in. And then the next thing you'll see on this Canvas sheet is class videos. If you click on that, it'll take you to YouTube, and it takes you to the playlist for this class. And so if you scroll down, I posted the class from January 17th right at the bottom there. You can see the video was 1 hour and 41 minutes long. The break time's included in that, so obviously you could fast forward through that. But if you miss a class, and you can come back here, and you could actually watch the class at your own leisure in your own time that's convenient for you. Or if you have a situation where something that we did in class didn't quite make sense and you want to go back and hear it again, that would be where you'd find that. And then under current class materials, right now we are on operations with positive and negative numbers. And so if you click on that, it takes you to the Google Drive where that is stored. And this is the packet of papers that hopefully, I assume, Julie, everyone in Flag has these now?
Yes, correct.
Okay, if you're not in Flag, if you're online, I am going to put a link to that Google Drive document. And so if you come to Flag or Page, we'll be printing out these documents for you. If you're participating from home, if you can come by the Flag campus or Page campus, you can pick them up, or you can print them out yourself, or you can just try to follow along as it's up on the computer. Okay, so then these are the other lessons that have been taught in this class over the last few months. And so again, if there's a topic you wanted to review, you'd have that, and you could even pair it with the videos if you wanted to. And then under extra resources, down here at the very bottom, GED math formula sheet. If you click that, that will take you to the formula sheet that you are given while you're taking your GED. And that's just, so it's a document you want to be familiar with to know what's on there. Because you'll have that same document when you take your GED.
So there are some floating around in the classroom. If you locate one. Oh, yeah. And I can, of course, if anyone wants me to print one out for you, I can.
Okay, so this is why we'd really like to get everyone onto Canvas so that you have everything right at your fingertips. If you do not know your login and password, if you don't know it in Flag, will you tell Julie that you don't know it? If you're online at home, then let me know if you still don't have your login.
Want me to do that poll right now, or do you want me to wait?
Yeah, why don't you do that? I guess now I'm not sure who's online and who's in the classroom.
So Jason and Anthony are on camera for you there, and then, yeah, you can kind of see the rest of us, although I'm gonna work on adjusting the camera. Okay, so Sophia, do you have a student ID? Yes, okay. Let me. All right, so if you can, after class, go ahead and make sure you have that, but go ahead and go to the IT desk and they can help set up your password. Pat, Singh, and Robert. Singh.
Yeah, I think I set it up yesterday.
Oh. Okay, you can try and log in and see if it likes your password, and just know that your username is this R.
Okay, comment.
That's your comment ID. Yeah, that's your comment / network ID. So that will be your username, but then I think you ladies just need to set up a password. And then Adriana, do you know if you've ever set it up?
I've never, I'm in the process
Oh, okay.
of asking questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've never actually.
But you have,
But I have my.
okay, you have your password.
I do have. thing.
Okay.
I've never.
And, okay, let me make sure you're invited.
Okay, so Riva, but you must have gotten in because you're on the camera. Well, I guess you could have gone the other way. Do you have your sign in, Riva?
Today, so I think, Reva, were you able to get my?
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, Riva's in Flagstaff, right?
Yeah,
no,
I'm in Flagstaff.
she's not in the classroom.
Oh. So Riva, do you have your sign in? Your login?
Do I have my login? Yes, I do.
Okay. And Jeanette, you said you needed to still get yours, correct?
This is your common ID.
Yeah.
Okay, and I sent you, I think I said, yeah, I've sent Jeanette the number. Okay, Zacius, I know you're on. Nat, I gave you the number.
So Kat and Sophia, does that make sense? Common ID. Yeah. Okay. Great.
It's Hannah,
yeah.
the number, right?
Here's a little key because. Just like email. We keep trying to figure out how to help you guys know how to access that. Yeah, so then, Mary, what I need to do is just get a sense of, I'm gonna write down all the folks that I see and make sure everyone has an invite to the Canvas page.
Okay.
And of course, the thing about that is they'll have to check their student Gmail to get that Canvas invitation.
Okay.
So it'll.
Okay, so from here.
There is someone online that their computer is just called My PC. Can you tell me who you are?
Yeah, just go ahead and.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Hi.
Do you want to say that? Or?
Just a minute, I'll get you started.
Okay, looks like I need to.
Okay. In here.
By the way, did you know it ends at 12? The class.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, Julie, do we have a handle on who still needs information?
Um. What do you mean?
Well, I can't tell now who's in the classroom and who's coming in, who's signing in from their house.
Okay, see, my screen that says Julie Baumgartner.
So the person whose camera is saying my PC, can you let me know who you are?
So message them. I feel like it's Sam, but. Yeah, they might be away from their PC or something. Oh, yes, please.
No, Reva, I can see your name, so you're not my PC.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I will keep working on it, Mary, but
Okay. All right, so you ready for me to move on?
yeah.
Okay, let me get all this off of my screen here. Okay. So a quick recap from Tuesday is we're going to be starting working with positive and negative numbers. And that's because a lot of people struggle once we get to the negative side. And so basically spend a little bit of time talking about what things really are negative numbers in the real world, even though you may not actually call them about a negative sign in front of it. For example, yards gained in football versus yards lost. You could think about that as a positive gain and a negative loss. When prices go up, that's a positive number, isn't necessarily a positive thing. And when prices drop, that would be considered a negative. Or temperature. I shared that I lived in Alaska a lot of years, and we talked about a lot of negative temperatures in Alaska. The coldest I've ever experienced is -80. And so we do talk often about negatives when we're talking about temperature. So we also took a look at the number line.
Oh, it's really.
And ordering numbers on the number line. So these should be the first few pages of your packet that we've already gone through. We talked about less than and greater than. And that those symbols are important for you to know. On a number line, when we move to numbers to the right, those are getting bigger. And as we move numbers on the left of the number line, those numbers are less. And so, for example, if you look at -8 and -5, +5 is less than 8. But when we move to the negative end of things, the bigger that number is, the smaller that it gets. So from the number line, you can actually see that -5 is bigger than -8 because it falls to the right of -8. And so we've pulled kind of two concepts out of this, and that is being able to compare two numbers using the less than and greater than symbol. And so what I suggested to students is when you're looking at two numbers like 20 and 20, -20 and -21, if you imagine those on the number line, -21 is going to
They
be
can't hear me
to the left.
because my microphone is muted.
-21 is going to be to the left of -20, which means that -20 is larger. And so we put a box around the larger number, and then you may recall even from your early days of school, if you think about the greater than and less than symbols as the mouth is opening to the bigger number, once you identify the bigger number, then you just do the symbol so that the mouth is opening towards the larger number. All right, awesome. Okay, sorry for that. So as we looked through each of these, we identified the bigger number, and then we made the symbol that opened to the bigger number. And so we talked about that negative 29 is less than positive 29. And if we reverse the order and put the 29 on the left, 29 is greater than negative 29. And so these symbols are ones we're going to do some work with, and eventually in math, you get to a point where you're solving inequalities, where you're solving algebra problems using less than or greater than. And so the second concept we pulled out of this number line idea was ordering numbers from least to greatest. And I suggested that if you're having any trouble at all with ordering the numbers, to jot down a number line, because when I look at all these negative numbers that are in yellow, there was negative 25, negative 15, negative 9, negative 7, negative 6. If you envision where they are on the number line and say which one is farthest to the left, that's going to be the smallest number. And so negative 25 would be the smallest out of this list. And then as I move to the right, where greater numbers exist, I would pass negative 15, negative 9, negative 7, negative 6, and then positive 5. And so let's just take a moment. Let me give you a set of numbers. I will try 2 of these to make sure we're kind of all on board. So for number 1, we're going to order these from least to greatest. So if you'll write those numbers in order from least to greatest for me.
On that.
All right, looks like a few of you have put your answers in the chat, which is great.
If you want to open your student Gmail on there, then you should see the invite to our counselors are done ordering numbers.
All right, getting answers from lots of people. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at these. One thing that I find helpful is to maybe circle, highlight, underline, identify all your negative numbers. Because those are the ones you have to be most careful about. And so I've done that for number 1 and number 2. Since I'm going from least to greatest, I jotted a number line down here. So remember, lower numbers are down here to the left. And so anything that's farthest to the left is going to be my smallest. And so as I look at -6, -12, -5, and -16, the number that would be farthest to the left would be the -16. And as I move to the right and get bigger, the next number I'm going to encounter is -12. And then -6, -5. And now I've done all of my negatives, and positives most people don't have too much trouble with. I stick them on the end. Number 2 is where the people at GED said that students have the most trouble with all the numbers, which I've made all but one of them negative. When you have lots of negative numbers, that's where students tend to get confused. So remember, we want to figure out which number is farthest to the left. If I extended this number line way out here, -85 is going to be the farthest to the left. So farthest to the left will be the least or the smallest. And then as I travel to the right to get bigger, the next number I'm going to encounter is -22. And then -15, -5, -1, and then 0. All right. Now on the GED, you might not see just whole numbers and integers in that. We might end up with fractions and decimal in that list too. And we're going to circle back at some point and talk about those, but I want to make sure we kind of get all this operations with integers. If we can get that really solid, then when we add the decimals and fractions, it's not so confusing because you're not trying to remember 2 sets of things. So any questions before we kind of jump into the new content? All right. We need to be able to add positive and negative numbers. Because on the GED, the first 5 questions are questions that you cannot use a calculator on. You can use a calculator on the last 41, but the first 5, you can't use a calculator. And so these problems with integers and order of operations are the kinds of problems you're going to be seeing. And so while you'll have the calculator that can help you in the last half of the test, as long as you know the rules, you should be able to knock out those first 5 questions. The nice thing about the first 5 questions is they will almost never be a word problem. They'll be just straight, what we call naked number math problems, just numbers. And so if you're one who doesn't like word problems really well, then you may as well try to max out those first 5 questions where you don't have word problems. So we're going to basically kind of review how to add on a number line. I'm going to show you 2 different ways that you can visualize adding positive and negative numbers, and then we'll talk about what's the rule, what rule will help you. But I want to go through using a number line and then another method, because if you forget the rule, but you know how to do it on a number line, or you know how to do it visually another way, you can actually solve the problem even if you forget the rule. So to use a number line, if we want to add 6 plus 3, we start at 6. And since 3, we're adding a positive number, we're going to the right because positive numbers go to the right. We go to the right 1, 2, 3. And you can see that 6 plus 3 is 9, which you probably knew without a number line. It's when we start introducing the negatives that maybe it won't be so obvious. So if we look at the scenario -6 plus 3, that means we start at -6. And since the 3 is positive, we're going to move in the right direction, 3 units, and we get to -3. So that means if I start with -6 and I add 3, I travel 3 to the right, I will end up at -3.
Mary, I'm just kind of writing a list of everyone. Who do you have in page with you?
Curtis is in page with me.
Okay, just Curtis. Cool. Hi, Curtis. Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry to
Okay.
interrupt.
So as we look at -6 plus -3, -6 means we start at -6 and we're going to add a negative. So we move to the left because we are putting in, we're moving to the negative direction. So we start at -6, we go 3 to the left and we end up at -9. And so that's how you would use a number line to find how to add positive and negative numbers. I want to show you a different method because for some of you who are more visual learners, one of these methods might make a little more sense to you. And another method that is used like a positive and negative charge model, it's called. If you think about electricity having a positive charge and a negative charge, and if you have one of each, one positive and one negative, anybody know what happens when you have one positive and one negative? They actually cancel each other out. So if we're looking at -4 plus -5, that's -4 charges plus -5 charges. And when we count the little bubbles, there are 9 negatives. And so to visualize a positive plus a negative number, I start out with 6 positives. So I have 6 discs with positives in them. And then I'm going to add 2 negatives to this picture. And then to find the answer, a positive and a negative cancel out, a positive and a negative cancel out, and I'm left with 4 positives. So what I'd like for you to do is, I'd like for you to do the first 3 problems and think about doing them with a number line and finding the answer. And then the next 3, I want you to try the plus and minus charge model. And then we'll talk about those. And again, we're going to eventually build up the rule that you need in order to do these in your head. So just try the number line and try the other one. See what you think about them.
Mary likes, it's helpful for me to have the visual back.
You want me to turn on my camera?
If
Is
you
that what you
would.
said?
Yes, if you would. We'll try to model for all of those folks with that. Appreciate it, thank you. So I think, Mary, we at least have 4 Flagstaff faces for you. There's Aces and Sophia.
It's like some people have been playing with their background. Did we figure out who my PC is yet?
Nope, haven't heard anything.
Okay.
Sometimes I want to guess it might be either Sam or Evanet. I'm not.
Sam or who?
Evanet.
Evanet contacted me and said that she has to work today.
Oh, okay.
It's not Evanet.
My guess is it's Brittany Sam. But yeah, I'll try and reach out again.
Okay.
Yeah, more than we need it, but yes.
You're working all along.
I mean, I can't remember. the fall when I asked for an adjustment, it was very warm.
Yeah, it's kind of too warm, maybe it's just me.
It's one of those, yeah, plus we have these here of 90.
Because it was cold and.
I know. So it's like, oh, we can't really win with a happy medium, so, but I will try, Robert, I will definitely ask. See if they can turn it down.
Okay, oh, for sure.
Yeah. 'Cause, you know, so trying to find that Goldilocks place, and then it's like, okay, do we want to be too cold or too hot,
Right.
which is worse?
Yeah, that'd be.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah,
I'll be
you
personally.
could joke around and say like, when it's cold, then at least you stay away, right?
Oh, that's,
That would be my, I
I feel like I can't focus when I'm cold.
that, yeah, see, yeah.
Again, I'm always cold, so I'm probably who I'd rather be home.
Okay, if we take a look at 1 through 3 on a number line. Again, I just want you to get a feel for what it looks like and feels like. And you may go, yeah, I don't really like the number line, and that's okay. I just want you to experience them, and then I'd like for you to kind of have one of these two visuals that makes sense to you. So that if you're in a situation where you have to figure out an answer and you've forgotten the official rule, you'll still be able to find the answer. So 5 plus 3, we start at the positive 5. We go 3 units to the right. And we end up at 8, which I doubt you really needed a number line to find the answer to that problem. But again, we're just kind of trying to feel out what it looks like and feels like to do the problems this way. Number 2, -9. So that means we're going to start all the way over here and we're going to add -2. And so I didn't make enough. I need to extend my number line here. If I'm at -9 and I'm adding a negative, that means I'm going left 1, 2. I'm going to make it to -11. And number 3, if I start at -5 and I add -1, I'm going to go to the left 1 space and I'm going to be at -6. Okay, anybody like the number line method? I see a kind of from somebody. All right. So the next ones I said to do the charge model, which I probably should have picked different numbers for those, but number 4 would be represented by 8 positives and 2 negatives. And then I'm going to cancel out the positive and the negatives that are together. And that leaves me then with 6 positives. Number 4 or 5 says start with 4 negatives. And then I'm going to add 10 positives. And so you see that these 4 negatives are going to wipe out 4 of my positives. And that's going to leave me with 6 positives. Again. And then number 6, if I start out with 12. 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. And then I add 4 negatives. Remember that my negatives are going to wipe out 4 of those positives. And then I'll only be left with 8. Okay, for the last 3, use a number line, use the positive and negatives. Don't use a calculator right now, but find the answers to 7, 8, and 9, however you choose without a calculator.
Everyone feeling pretty confident with this stuff? It shouldn't be hopefully too hard or stressful.
Pretty good.
Pardon?
Maybe in various places and students, for some, this may be a total review, easy peasy. I promise we'll move on. Or if you're finding it a little challenging, we're going to take some time to really develop the rules and hopefully give you something you can hang on to know how to solve these. As we look at number 7, if you do it by the charge method, you would do 8 negatives and 1 positive, which would knock out one of those negatives and leave me with 7 negatives. On a number line, I would start at -8, and I'm just going to go 1 in the right direction because positives are to the right, and I would get to -7. Number 8, you'd start with 4 positives and 3 negatives. And we'd mark out our pairs that cancel out, and we're left with only 1 positive. No, we're not. Wait a minute. What did I do? Okay, scratch that. I saw a 1 instead of a 7. So I have 7 negatives. And when I cancel out the negatives with their positives, I would be left with positive or -3. On a number line, you would start at 4.
Are we, I don't even.
And I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units to the left because negative is to the left. And there's my 0. And so -3 would be over here. Number 9, you have 10 negatives. And 5 more negatives. And so there's nothing to cancel out. You just have a whole lot of negatives. In fact, you have 15 of them. And on a number line,
Oh, did I mess up the audio?
I would start at -10 and I'd move 5 places to the left. And I would end up at -15. So can you write in your chat which way you like better? Number line or charge method? Let's take a little poll and see what people think.
Robert, what do you guys think? Which method y'all prefer, number line or charge? Number line?
For the number line.
Okay.
Charge? Good.
I probably missed what the charge method is, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want another explanation of
Oh,
it?
and then it cancels and you cancel them out, whatever. Okay,
Positive and negative cancel each other out.
thank you.
Yeah, that's why I'm marking those out and then seeing what's left. So I'm hearing kind of a good split. Yeah, I am too. So, and that's perfectly fine. Again, what these kind of visuals are is some people are more visual learners, first of all. And the second thing that these visuals can do is when you're nervous on a test and you forget the rule that we're going to talk about in just a minute, you can go back to this method and kind of recapture the rule or just do all the problems visualizing the whichever method that you like better. And so it's kind of a place to hang your hat that you can go back to if you get in a position where you can't remember what the rule is. Because you may remember that the rules for adding and subtracting and multiplying and dividing are different. And so once we put all those rules together, sometimes they start getting mixed up. So now we can talk about what's the rule. Okay, and this is just for adding. And you may have started to notice this in the problems that we were doing, but if the signs are the same, meaning you have 2 positives or 2 negatives, all you do is add the numbers, and I put numbers in air quotes because when you have -4 and -3, I'm saying just add 4 plus 3, the numbers, to get 7, and then you keep the sign. So a negative plus a negative is just more negative. So -4 plus -3 is -7. So that's the rule when the signs are the same. 2 positives, you probably won't have trouble with anyway. But 2 negatives, we're going to take the 4 and the 3, we're going to add them, and then we're going to keep the same sign. And you could see that pretty clearly in number 9. By the charge method, if I put in 10 negative charges and then I add more negative charges, I just have a lot more negative charges. There's nothing that cancels. On the number line, if I start in a negative, at a negative number and I move to the left, I'm just going to get a negative number. Does that make sense? So Zasius values would be a good word instead of numbers that I put in air quotes. You're right. We're actually going to talk about absolute value. And if you think positive plus a positive, again, if you just have positive charges and then you add more positive charges, you just have positive charges. So that's why when the signs are the same, you add the values, as Zasius pointed out, and then you keep the same sign. Okay, so we have 2 rules for addition. If the signs are different, meaning you have 1 positive number and 1 negative number that you're adding, then the rule is different. Okay, if the signs are different, you subtract the numbers or the values and keep the sign of the larger. Okay, that rule sounds more confusing in words than it really is, because if you look at -4 plus 3, that would be 4 negatives and 3 positives. When the signs are different, we end up crossing out these pairs. And we get left with whatever's left after we really, all we're doing is subtracting 4 minus 3 to get 1. Because the 3 positive charges cancel out 3 of the negative charges, which leave me only 1 negative. On the number line, that would be, if I start at -4 and I add positive 3, I'm going to move to the right 3 units, which means I'm moving to larger value. And if I only move 3 places, I don't cross over the 0 to get to positives yet. I end up stopping at -1, but it's a larger value because I moved to the right. And so I end up with -1 that way. Now the rule just says take the 4 and subtract the 3 and keep the sign of the larger value, which the larger value is -4. And the larger value is 4, but it is negative, and that's why your answer is negative. And so if we look at the opposite scenario, +4 plus -3, if I start out with 4 positives and I add 3 negatives, I'm going to get this canceling out process again, but now I have more positive charges. I started with more positive charges. And so when I cancel out the negatives, this time I'm left with +1. And that makes sense by the rule because I have 4 minus 3 is 1, and I keep the sign of the larger, and the 4 is larger than the 3, and the 4 is positive. So my answer is positive. by the number line method, I'm going to start at 4. And if I'm going to add a -3, I go 1, 2, 3, and I end up at negative or at +1. And the reason is those -3s, I moved to the left, but I didn't cross over into the negative numbers. I didn't even quite make it to 0. Okay. Questions?
Everyone good? You're
Okay.
good in here.
So rules for addition are there are 2 rules, and they're based on whether the signs are the same or if the signs are different. Okay, so if you look at the next page in your packet, actually it is 11. So why don't we take our break, and then we'll be working on the next page in the packet, which is simply a page of positives and negatives for you to add and add. Just to, if you remember, math is not a spectator sport. And sometimes things can look really easy when you watch a teacher do them, and then you get them by yourself and you're like, huh, this is harder than I thought. So we want to exercise those muscles. So it is currently 11:02. Let's come back about 11:12. And we'll work on this.
I would just hold on to them. How much do you have a sense of how much time you work on them?
But there was kind of a 7 hours.
Okay. I'll just go ahead and record it so you can hang on to those notes.
But
Awesome. Okay, yeah, I can definitely give you credit for that. I see your notes, so yeah, but it makes sense for you to just hold on to them if it's helpful to people. Pardon?
I didn't know that it was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, usually as long as you just kind of show me what you did and have a sense of how much time you spent in this session.
Well, for math, it was probably 4 hours, but I also did English.
Okay, no, you're good. I'm still just lumping them together. Um, So about remind today.
Julie, are you talking to me?
Yes,
Okay, sorry. I wasn't listening very well.
that's okay. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Okay, I'm just working on inviting folks to remind if they're not already in the remind class. So maybe when we restart, just give them a quick blurb saying, if you get a text message inviting you to a class, please accept it. And that way, just another way you can connect and communicate. Thank you.
Just remind me if I get started and I forgot to do it.
Sure. So yeah, Robert, and sending you an invite here shortly. I haven't here.
I locked myself out of my account
Uh-oh.
because I was trying to change the password
Oh,
on
no.
my phone, so.
Yeah, so the folks at the
Okay.
IT desk can help you.
Right.
Probably not enough time right now at the break, but.
Okay, no, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Cool.
Word.
Great, yeah, I've definitely been there, like, it's a little annoying, because yeah, you have your username, your password, you have to have your 3, what is there, like 5 or 6 security questions?
Yeah, there's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, it's intense.
And Julie, on those security questions, you can write your own.
I don't know,
Pencil, it's.
Actually make your own security question.
that's nice. I don't feel like that was an option when I had to, but. Cool. You have a good break? Anthony,
I-
kind of.
The first part was like,
Okay. 50-50. Come on.
easy part. So,
Yeah, I had a nice break too.
It was a long break.
It was a long break.
I was with my kids.
And of course, I know,
20.
I don't have the kid thing, but the husband.
Ah.
I'm empathizing in that way.
Right,
it's free space.
Well, and then my kids, they got canceled, so it was like an
Mhm.
Sorry.
True.
Yeah.
When was school supposed?
It was supposed to start,
Yeah, oh, no, yeah, this school, but like
Um,
FUSD.
Oh,
Those
oh,
were-
the first week, after the 7th.
yeah, it was
Oh,
after
okay.
the 7th, but then they were out for another because of the snow, so it was like an extended. Because of Martin Luther King Day, and then they just went back today, and then go for a half day tomorrow. I was like, they should have just come.
Yeah, just punch it on the spring and just
They
start it
go
out.
for a day and a half. I'm like, I don't know. But, and then they were late this morning.
Oh, cool.
Driving.
Yeah.
Oh, driving.
It's the prototype.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, this should still be accurate.
Yeah, cause I got the one online. Yeah, computer,
Oh,
there's a different one, computer basics and then,
oh, like the name of the class is different?
they're.
Yeah, I think, yeah, so computer skills are, computer basics and digital literacy. That's where you physically come here and, learn and practice using your computer. Whereas career and college readiness, is mostly for folks who want just extra independent help. Or if you are feeling GED ready, we can, have you come in during those class times, take your practice test, see where you're at. And kind of plan from there. So I would say for you, Anthony, it'd be a good,
Yeah.
kind of where you're at.
Gonna ask if I can set up a GED practice to see. what it's
Yeah,
from.
definitely. So yeah, you can either come in today at 2:30 or tomorrow at 3. Okay. Cool, yeah. Yeah, so that's what those class times are for, is really just independent work. Got a teacher there to support and work with you. It's like Kashia found us.
So close, but so far away.
You gotta get that student. So
Literally 1 point away. I was so mad.
do you want to just schedule, or did you want to like take another practice test?
Oh, did you already take the test? Yeah.
I was 1 point shy from passing.
Dang.
I know,
It's
just
just
one.
sad.
Just one.
You're not alone.
The last time I took it, they didn't have civics, like 2016.
Oh.
Oh, yeah,
you were
no.
in Arizona?
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't, back then it was just,
the
social
four, right?
yeah, the 4.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know when this was put into law, but it's a very interesting Arizona.
It's made me feel awkward thinking it, but
I know. Why are we making? Hope everyone loved the fully screen. Well, sorry, it was the taxpayers. It was the taxpayers' Christmas present. Yeah. Yeah, we all contributed. Piece of technology. Let's find it.
Okay. Let's see. We are back at 11:12, and I've got a sheet for you just of some practice with adding integers. And again, you may think, I'm not sure this is that hard, but I want you to have some practice so that my hope is you'll get to a point where you don't have to say the rule in your head to get the answer or draw it out. If you need to do that, you probably have to do one of those two things now, unless you've already mastered this concept. But I want you to just, again, flex those muscles. It's called muscle memory. And so once we do something enough times, our muscles kind of in our brains the same way, it learns that process, and then eventually it becomes automatic. So if you work on this sheet, there's 16 problems. The first 8 are here on the board. Hopefully you can see the rest of the 16 on your packet. Don't do them with a calculator. You can jot down the number line, jot down the charge model, use the rule, however you can, but try to get the answers to these 16 questions without using a calculator. you can kind of check in with me as you finish and chat. Let me know you're done. Starting to see some heads come up in Flagstaff, so I assume some of you are starting to finish. Okay, great. Getting a little feedback from Flag, thank you. Okay, so as we take a look at these, remember you want to try and have something to remind yourself of how you're going to do these. You've got the number line, you've got the charge method, you've got the rule. Okay, as I look at number one, I have 20 negatives plus 2 negatives. And so if you're using the charge method, as you start to write these down, you might go like, that's a whole lot of negatives. And then I'm going to add 2 more negatives to it. And so I'm just going to have a ton of negatives. In other words, you're going to have 22 of them because nothing's going to cancel out. Okay. If you're envisioning your number line, if you're at negative 22 and you go to, or negative 20, excuse me, and you go 2 units to the left, you're going to also end up at negative 22. And if you use the rule, it says if the signs are the same, which they are, they're both negative, you add the values to get 22 and you keep the sign that the 2 numbers started with. So you also get negative 22 that way. I do want to show you on the calculator, not that I'm wanting you to use the calculator now, but I've got another sheet that we may just not do in class and have you do on your own. And if you want to check them on the calculator, you're given for the GED, the negative sign is right below the 3. And so to add negative 20 plus negative 2, you would hit the negative sign, negative 20 plus negative 2. But you can see it put in the negatives for me, hit the enter, and it'll tell you that the answer is negative 22. So if you're working on work that you're not supposed to use a calculator on, you can always check your work using the calculator. If you have a phone, your phone has a calculator on it. I have an iPhone. So if I wanted to do negative 20, whoops, I guess that on this phone, this one, sometimes on some calculators, you have to put the negative in afterwards. So negative 20 plus negative 20 plus 2 and make it negative, and it'll get me the answer negative 22. Okay. So you can use a phone, you can use a calculator. There's probably there will be a calculator on your computer or a tablet. So if you want to check things, you can. Are you done, Tiffany? With the math. Okay. Do you want to come back another time to finish the other? Yeah. Okay. Are you going to be here next week or are you here tomorrow? I'll be here tomorrow morning. I'll come by again. Okay, thanks. Okay, so if we look at number 2, I would have 29 negatives and I would have 15 positives. And so I'm going to start canceling things out. So maybe you can get to the point where you can start envisioning, I didn't write 29 negatives, as you can see, and I didn't write 15 positives, but you can see what's happening is those positives are killing off negatives. And so there's only going to be a certain number left when I'm done. If I take 15 positives that kills off 15 of these negatives, I'm only going to have 14 negatives left when it's all said and done. So that might be a way you could use the charge model, but not actually write out every single positive and negative. Just help it, use it to help you get started on what's happening so that you know whether you should take these 2 numbers and add them or take these 2 numbers and subtract them. On your number line, you would start all the way over here at negative 29, and you would be moving 15 places to the right. You would not cross over to 0 because you wouldn't make it there. And so you know that your answer has to be negative. And if I move 15 slots to the right, I'm going to be 14 places away from 0. And so the answer would be -14. Or if you use the rule, the signs are different. So we subtract the values and take the sign of the larger. 29 minus 15 is 14. 29 is the larger value, so I keep the negative sign. Any questions on how you can start using these models, but maybe not write out everything? Maybe just use it to help you get started on whether you're going to be adding or subtracting the numbers and if the answer is going to be positive or negative. Okay, number 3. Does someone know the question?
Just checking in on my folks in here.
All right, 18 and 9 got 2 positives, so I'm just going to add those together. If you can't add those in your head, you can do your old-fashioned arithmetic. 8 plus 9 is 17, carry the 1, and I end up with 27. And it's positive because both of my numbers are positive. Again, if I was doing the charge model, I'd be doing 18 pluses and then 9 more pluses. So I know that I'm just going to have a whole lot of pluses. Nothing's going to cancel. And so I add together the 2 numbers. On the number line, I'm starting at positive 18 and I'm moving to the right 9 places. So I'm going to get to a bigger number. And I would add the 18 and the 9 to get 27. Okay. Number 4. Start out with 12 positives and 6 negatives. Cancel. And so you're going to be left in the end with fewer negatives than fewer positives than you started with. And so these 6 negatives knock out 6 of these positives, which means I'm down to 6 positives left. Number line, I start at 12 and I move 6 places to the left. And you'll end up at 6. And the rule says the signs are different. One's positive, one's negative. So I subtract the numbers. 12 minus 6 is 6. And I take the sign of the larger. And the larger is positive. So my answer is positive. Okay, number 5. I get a feedback. What'd you get for number 5?
7.
Positive or negative?
Negative.
Yes, very good. The 11 is a bigger value than the 4. So my answer is going to be negative and I'm going to subtract them. So -7 is correct. What about number 6? I have negatives and more negatives.
-17.
-17. Yep. I have 7 negatives and then 10 more negatives. I have a whole bunch of negatives. Or I'm starting at a negative number and I'm moving farther to the left. So I'm going to be more negative than I started. All right, 8 plus 16, 2 positives. We just add them together. 8 plus 16 is 24. Number 8, 24 plus -1. What's your answer? Feel free to holler it out, type it in the
You
chat.
said 23.
Okay, and I see 23 in the chat from a few people too. Good job. Because basically I have 24 positive charges, 1 negative cancels out one of those positives, leaving me with only 23. Or I'm starting on the number line way over at 24 and I'm moving to the left only 1 place. For the rule says when the signs are different, subtract the numbers and keep the sign of the larger. All right, number 9. What do we have for number 9?
-14.
You take a look at it and it wouldn't be -14. It'd be -16. Did I hear 16? Okay, because I have 15 negative charges and 1 more negative charge. So I have more negative charges. So you add them together to get 16. On the number line, If I'm at negative 15, I move 1 to the left, and so I'm going to be at negative 16. Or by rule, the signs are the same, so I add them together and take the sign of the larger. What about number 10? What'd you get for number 10? Anthony, are you telling me the number in your video? I think
9.
Yeah, 0 is a
Yeah.
space, huh, isn't it? I skipped the 0. I put -1.
No, 0 is a placeholder kind of.
Yep. And so if you're using the number line, you got to make sure you do have a 0 in there. And so when I sketch my number lines, I don't always write in every number, but I always put 0 and then a few numbers on the left and a number or 2 on the right. So if we start here, we jump 2 spaces and we do get to 0. Or 2 negatives and 2 positives cancel each other all out and you're left with 0. Or the signs are different. I subtract the numbers. And there really isn't a sign of the larger when the 2 numbers are the same. But hopefully once you get to 0, you're at 0. All right, number 11. What do we have for number 11?
-8.
-8. Good. I've got 14, got lots of negatives. I have only 6 positives. So when they start canceling out, I'm going to be left with negatives. And there's going to be 14 minus 6 or 8 negatives left. My rule says if the signs are different, I subtract and I take the sign of the larger value. All right, what do we have for number 12?
And
10.
Yep, very nice. Again, I'd have a whole lot of positives. I'd have 19 of them. I'd only have 9 negatives that would start canceling out. So I'm going to be left with positives. And if I have 19 positives and 9 negatives wipe out 9 of the positives, I'd be left with 10 positives. Or your number line. If I'm at 19 and I move 9 spaces to the left, I'm still positive and I would be at 10. All right, hopefully number 13, 28 plus 0 is 28. Number 14, I have negatives and more negatives. So my answer is
-14.
very nice. And number 15, I have negatives and then I have positives. I heard a little bit, but I didn't quite hear what you said.
-16.
-16, very nice. Signs are different. I subtract 23 minus 7 to get 16. I carry the sign of the larger, which is negative. Or I have 23 negatives and only 7 positives to wipe out 7 of those negatives. And so I'm going to be left with 16 negatives. And the last one,
20.
very nice, because I'd have 25 positives and only 5 negatives to wipe out 5 of those positives. Or on my number line, I'm starting at 25 and I'm moving to the left 5 places and I would get to 20. Okay, is that starting to feel good?
That's right.
Okay. I included this next page, and I think what we're going to do with this next page is I would encourage you to take some time between now and Monday to do this page. We'll do one to get you started and make sure you know what it's asking you to do. And then I'm going to leave you to do that on your own. You can check your answers with a calculator, or Monday we'll take a look at these to kind of re-exercise these adding and muscles, or next Tuesday, excuse me. What each of these addition squares is just asking you to do is to fill in a square you just look at the numbers above and to the left of it. So if I want to fill in this square here, I look above and I see 21. I look to the left and I see 5. So this is an addition square. So I add 21 plus 5 and I get 26. If I move to the right, I add 5 plus 22 and get 27. To fill in this last one in this row, I add 5 plus 11 and get 16. Next row, I add 10 plus 21 and get 31. 10 plus 22 and get 32. And 10 plus 11 and get 21. And then when you move to the negatives, obviously when we're adding all positives on the top of this chart, it's a lot easier. When we want to go down to this bottom square here, I'm going to add -8 plus 21. And you might be able to do that in your head, and that's great. If you can't, you might need to write out -8 plus 21 so you can see it all together, and that's totally fine too. So you may need some scratch paper. So because the numbers get farther apart as you move through this square. So -8 plus 21. Anyone tell me what that answer would be? Curtis says 13. I hear 13 from someone else as well. And because we have different signs, we subtract the numbers, take the sign of the larger. So 21 minus 8 is 13. And 21 is the bigger number. There'd be way more positive charges left than negative once we cancel. And so -8 plus 22. Again, different signs. So I subtract and I get 14. And I take the sign of the larger, which is the 22. And then the last box is -8 plus 11. I've got different signs. So I subtract them and I get 3. And I take the sign of the larger, which is positive. So as you move through some of these and as you get more negatives involved, you may really need to write it out. If you can do it in your head, that's awesome. But if you need to write it out, that's no problem either. Just write it out and find an answer and put it in the box. So I'm going to leave this page with you. We'll take a look at this page for Tuesday. And that'll give us an opportunity to kind of revisit adding positives and negatives. As we get started. Any questions on that? You're welcome to use your calculator and check your work. I just encourage you not to use a calculator to do it because you just need to get some practice. Okay. The next page, adding 3 integers. Isn't much different, except you're going to be adding the first 2 numbers and then adding the third number. So if I look at number 1, I'm going to add 7 plus 18, which are both positive, and I'm going to get 25 plus -11. And so now I add 25 and -11. 25 positive charges, 11 negative charges. I'm going to be crossing some out, but I'm going to have more positives than negatives. So I'm going to subtract those and keep the sign of the larger. So positive 14 would be your answer to number 1. Number 2, if I add these first 2 together, I have 12 negatives plus 4 more negatives. So I have a lot of negatives. I have 16 of them. And now I have 16 negatives plus 17 more negatives. So I have 33 negatives. or my signs are the same. So I add the numbers, carry the sign. Okay, there are some problems left on here for you. So I'll give you a few minutes to go through those. And then we'll go through them together.
Oh, no, no, yeah, yeah. No, not finished. So I was
Oh,
just
yeah,
getting it.
yeah. True. It's a good thing.
All right, as you finish, if you kind of just give me some feedback and let me know. I don't want to rush you, but I also don't want you to just sit there. So as you finish, if you give me a thumbs up in the chat or something to let me know. Adriana, you good? Okay. Curtis, you good? Use your toes and then your nose. All right, I'm starting to see some heads come up on videos that I have anyway, so let's take a look at these. What'd you get for number 3?
$34.
I think you're off by just 1. 21 plus 2 is 23, and then 23 plus 12 would be 35. And it'd be positive. Because all our numbers to start with are positive. Okay, number 4. If we put together 6 plus negative 15, I'm going to get -9 plus 1. My signs are different, so I subtract and keep the sign of the larger. And then -9 plus 1, my signs are different, so I subtract and keep the sign of the larger. Number 5, 8 plus -24. Signs are different. I subtract and keep the sign of the larger. And then I'm going to add -14 to it. I have negatives plus more negatives. That's going to make a whole lot of negatives. It'll make -30. Number 6, good. I'm seeing a lot of people putting answers in the chat. Thank you. -7 plus 13 is +6 plus -2 gives me +4. Because I'm going to subtract, take the sign of the larger, and then subtract and take the sign of the larger. Number 7, 16 plus -1. I'm going to subtract and take the sign of the larger. And then I'm left with 2 positives. 15 plus 11 is, whoops, 20, not 25, 26.
6.
So if you ever see me write down a wrong answer, make sure you call me on it, because I just wrote 25. I'm not perfect either. So if you can correct my mistakes, that would be great. -5 and -16 makes lots of negatives. And so it makes -21 plus 3. Now I have a negative and a positive. Signs are different. I subtract and keep the sign of the larger.
-18.
Yep, good job. Number 9, I have -9 and +10. Almost all those positives are going to be wiped out by those 9 negatives. It's just going to leave me +1 plus 14, which leaves me 15. And then number 10, 2 positives. I just add them together, keep the positive. And then I have 37 plus -19, lots of positives. Some of these negatives are going to wipe out some of the positives. Signs are different. I subtract. And I'm going to get 20. Why can I not add today? Yes.
Okay.
Positive. 18 and 19 is 37. My brain is slow today, apparently. So I got +18. Is that right? Or did I add wrong?
No.
So does everybody agree with me? Because I don't know why my brain had hit a speed bump right when I was trying to do that problem.
We really like 18.
We agree.
+18.
+18. Thank you. You know, when you're going along and your brain just kind of feels like it hiccups or takes a speed bump, that's exactly what that felt like for me. So, okay, the last thing, that's all we're going to do for today. The last thing I want to do is Julie sent out Remind invites to those of you who aren't on Remind. And so if you get a text message asking you to join Remind, or what, do you remember what it says exactly, Julie?
What it says, I think it says Julie is inviting you like to a class.
Yeah.
But did you just get one, Kat?
Oh, I didn't get one.
Oh, okay.
I just got
Yeah.
one. like this morning
Oh, okay.
for math classes start.
Yeah. I don't see the invite message that folks get, actually. I should.
No, I don't either.
So yeah, so it's saying.
Right, was that the right message?
No,
Oh,
that's
sorry.
on Canvas.
Oh, I see.
But Sophia or Kat, did you guys get a text? Okay. It might not be processing, but
Oh,
I thought
maybe
I
I
sent
didn't.
invites.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Is that not it? Is that
yeah.
the Canvas?
Nope, that's Remind, so let's see.
So when you get that invitation, we would really encourage you to.
Yeah, there's a
accept it.
lot.
Yeah.
And you can, there's a Remind app. You can go to wherever.
But then you click on it, it goes to my, which I
And
do.
you can download the Remind app. And so before class, I sent this out to everybody. I sent a message that said classes are a go today. We will have math at 10 a.m. this morning. Hope to see you there. And then I'll always send you the link to the Zoom meeting as well. And so like we had a crazy start to this semester with classes being canceled. And so we sent out Remind notifications to students who were signed up so that they knew what was happening with the classes. Once you download the app and you make an account, you set up, I think it's just by your email address and a password. You can either visit Remind on the app on your phone, or you can get on a computer and go into remind.com and see the same information. I find it's a little easier on a computer sometimes, but I'm also old school and I like a really big screen. But the other thing you can do is you can actually send messages to people. So I sent out the Remind and a student wrote back to me and said, sorry, I'm at work today. Are you recording? And I told her, yeah, I'll be recording. So it's a way you can communicate with your teacher. It sends a direct message to our phones too. Obviously, we're not working 24 hours a day. So if you send me a Remind message at 2 a.m., I'm not going to respond because I'll be sleeping. But this is a way you can stay in contact with your teachers, and you can know what's happening in the class itself with those announcements. So we highly encourage you to embrace the Remind app, and then you'll get notifications. Are there any questions about that? Also, it's noted in the chat that they'd rather email, and that totally works fine as well. You're welcome to email us as well.
And I think if you like set up the Remind schedule or like the Remind app, then you can like ask it to send it to your email, but I can also invite you that way. So yeah, my thoughts are, number one, I am inviting you based on what you put in your registration form as your phone number. So if you have a different mobile number, let me know. Because yeah, like it didn't like your phone number, but I invited you to your Yahoo email. Yeah. And that's the weird thing too. Like some people like no technology is perfect, but like if you have someone's old phone number, sometimes like, I can't remember, I had a student this fall who like accepted and then their name became like Teresa someone, like whoever had the number before. So, it's not a perfect system, and we'll do our best to get you on there, and just be persistent with us and just patient. Because my other thought is, I don't know how long it takes like for the invite. Like, I don't know if it's like immediate or if there is some kind of like processing time before the invite that I sent gets to y'all, but we can just keep working on it throughout the next couple of days in class. So, but we want to get you guys plugged into Canvas and plugged into Remind, just so that we can communicate as clearly and directly and as timely as possible. So yeah, we'll keep working on that. Yeah,
And
I think that's
I just want to say how amazing it is to have so many students here today. It's awesome. And I'm excited that so many people are really embracing this path, and we're going to do our best to get you ready for the GED. And math tends to be, well, in fact, in one of those GED webinars I was in, it said of people who've taken 3 of the 4 main subject areas, 82% leave math to the last. And so I know it's a subject that, you know, can provoke a lot of fear maybe in some of you, but Julie and I and Marianne will be sitting in on some of the other math classes. We are going to do our best to get you those math muscles exercised and get you comfortable, and so that you can be successful. That is our ultimate goal. Julie, is Corey in class with you?
No, but I was just answering his little I am here. Corey, I did invite you through the phone number I saw on your student registration form. If you have a different mobile phone number, you can email it to me. But like I said, hopefully those invites go through. If not, I guess I'll get to talk to some support folks today. Yeah, well, that's because you're probably in multiple classes.
Okay.
And so when I send out announcements to multiple classes, you get duplicates because I have you guys divided up into different classes. And so, yeah, if you're in multiple classes, you will get, duplicate messages.
Because there's times when we blast basically everybody. We want to blast the classes, like when we had a snow day and classes were canceled, we blasted every class with a message. So if you're on multiple classes, you just get it multiple times. So, all right, well, we are about at 12, so we're going to close for today. Please, if you have time, take a look at that one sheet and just, you know, even if you do 1 or 2 of those squares a day to keep exercising those muscles, because when we come back next week, the first thing we'll do a warm up, and then we'll kind of review addition, and then we're going to go to subtraction. And if you've got the addition rules really set in your head, then that'll make subtraction easier. All right. All right, hope you have an awesome day. If anyone needs any help or whatever, you can stay on for a few minutes. I'll stay on for a few minutes and you can talk to me or message.
And you guys just make sure you close everything out on those computers and log off. There's a little key icon on the desktop. And if you just double click that, it'll log you out. 2:30. Yeah, 2:30 is when print card.